Hello again, I'm back. It's been a while. I've been working on this understanding of mine in Kataronics, which is the improved understanding of the cognitive functions. And Kataronics is very occupied with this idea of the most precise abstractions of these functions, so we can understand where these functions actually come from. Carl Jung has his own interpretation of these functions. He actually says that he has this red book where he found these functions, and I'm trying to do what he tried, which is to understand what he was seeing. To me, the description Carl Jung did on the functions is his best attempt to understand the functions, but the functions is actually not of his mind. It's actually something that he found in his dreams, or in his essentially, call it a spiritual experience or astral travel or whatever you call it. It's just that the things he saw there was universal, archetypical, and fundamental in a way, or like revealed something in the spirit world about our reality, in a sense. And to celebrate this new understanding, here we have the new personality test that I've made. I also had an old one, but this one is much more improved and it's much more in-depth. It actually takes a while to take this personality test. It's very advanced. It depends on the individual, but it can take about 40 minutes for the fast people and maybe almost an hour for the slower people. The personality test will measure your personality in 4 different parameters, which is functions and planes and roles and shadows. Okay, so here we have the personality quiz, how it looks when you join the quiz. And yeah, you can scroll down here and it just says like the Kataronics wheel is the score that you will get. So you get the score in form of a wheel. It's actually above 20 different categories that you will score points in. You get everything you need basically in this test to assess what type you really are, or what functions that you have your orientation towards. This personality test will help you, especially if you're uncertain about your type. What we see here is the planes, essentially, and between those planes you basically have the enlightenment or the transcendent function, which is not that known in a way, but the transcendent function is what Carl Jung kind of wanted people to discover, because it's essentially the ultimate balance between all the functions. And why do you want to have the Kataronics wheel score? It's because Kataronics is a typology that has been specifically developed in order to refine these archetypes as they truly really are. That is what Kataronics always focused, like I've been using years on this, because I really want the insights to be really great. And now I'm amazed by that myself, actually. It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like the last 2 years, it just kind of fell upon me like, oh my god, I understand it. I understand everything now. Like everything. I understand like the core principles of what balance means, and where we find enlightenment and the transcendent function, essentially. And I'm pretty sure that my understanding is very insightful and useful, and is, in one way, it's actually more symbolic than Carl Jung even did. I'm kind of simplifying it a little bit, but also creating a sort of ground for like a really true understanding of how we can use these functions. Because what is so exciting for me is that if what I've found is actually the truth, it can be used for almost anything, if not anything, actually. That's how powerful this will be. Kataronics have these 4 facets. You will get a score in the plane orientation. That's 8 different planes, which is, for example, life, world, logos, heaven, and so forth. The next facet is the role orientation, which gives you the information you need to determine whether or not you are an introverted person or an extroverted person. Or also if you have the P or the J in Myers-Briggs, and more stuff is actually, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Yeah, it's actually 10 different parameters here, which is a lot. 4 of them are inspired by Personality Ninja, so this score that you get is actually compatible with their system. It's 32 types they have in their system, and in a way this personality test is compatible with that system if you want to check it out. And yeah, that's basically the leader trait, the evolver trait, the organizer trait, and the explorer trait. And the functions orientation will give you a score on all the known 8 cognitive functions. They are the same in Kataronics, except they are refined and defined a little bit different. So what you will find here is that maybe you don't understand what questions is what function, because I have a little bit different understanding of what the function means. So that is also maybe a reason to take this test, is that you can't really predict it that well, and maybe it will kind of reveal those functions that you maybe didn't know that you had, or maybe were defined a little bit weird in another system or less accurate. I just did my best job in this to make it accurate. You can judge that yourself, but it's been a very focus for me to grasp these functions, because I had a spiritual awakening where I essentially connected to heaven and a lot of stuff. I'm going to make another video on that, but the point is that I got obsessed with this theory through that experience, and I understood that these functions, we can really understand them on a deeper level, and that's what I'm doing here. And I hope it will be useful to the world, essentially, so we can find a transcendent function together, right? And there's also a fourth facet, which is pronounced shadows, and that's just supposed to show us okay, where are your biggest shadows, and if they are there, maybe one should reconsider a little bit how strongly one believes in that shadow or darkness, because what it does is that the shadow or darkness is devaluing the opposite function. Okay, so here we have an example of the Kataronics wheel result, and it's an ENFJ who took the personality test, and we can already see here that he scored highest in the FE function, and then in FI, and then in NI, and then in SE. That is a very common or natural ENFJ tendency, but we can also see that maybe his NI and NE didn't score that high. So that's interesting to consider when we are digesting the information that we get for what personality type he really is. But we also see here that he scores very high in soul, the soul plane, and the heart plane. The soul plane is basically the NF, feeling intuitive plane, and the heart plane is the feeling plane, like a super feeling. So it kind of points to he is probably an NF type, and he is probably an feeling type too. Since those two scores are so close, it's possible then that we can sort of look at that. Is he a feeling hero, or is he an intuitive feeling hero? So you have two types of ENFJs, which can be the feeling hero ENFJ or the idealist intuitive dreamer ENFJ. When we look at all of his role functions, he scored planning, leader, decider, and also extroverted. So he gets all the normal things that an ENFJ would get. So it's really easy to determine his personality types, because everything here is very pointing to the ENFJ. It's only that he could maybe score more NI, or other than that, this looks very ENFJ in all the ways. And in order to understand the roles, you could look at the planes as that kind of determines if you are an NF or NT or ST and stuff like that. And the roles are what determines if you are an extrovert or introvert or judger or perceiver and stuff like that. So the result here, or conclusion, is that he is likely a soul hero, leader, and ENFJ. When you get the result, there is a description on all of the functions, what they actually mean, but you only get descriptions on the functions that you have high in your stack, because there's a lot of descriptions. If you really want to know all the functions and what they mean in Kataronics, then you can check out another video, which I will put in the link in the description below. These descriptions, they can change over time. In the personality quiz, they can change a little bit, but the video will contain the descriptions that it originally spawned with, if that makes sense. And these descriptions in the personality test is based in the new understanding that I have in Kataronics and of the universe, if you will. And they are very readily available for unpacking very, very large insights. It's like I have made this little small flower that will turn into anything. So you should take a look on those descriptions. I should say though that the descriptions are predominantly defined from a heaven perspective. And what that actually means is that if a person is more of a materialist or wants more empirical evidence for things, these descriptions can sound a little bit uprooted and ungrounded, and in a way they kind of are, but that's also okay, because I did it on purpose in a way, because I think we focus a little bit too much on matter and on the tangible facts and stuff like that. So I intentionally made this more of a heaven perspective on the functions, and that's what I excel the most at. I could try to give them a more materialistic description, but I feel like that's what most typology already did, so I kind of think that's okay. I like balance, you know, but I also like to think that maybe the invisible side of things are a little bit more important to get visible, if that makes sense. I can think that the older generation are the wise ones, but what if I can also consider that the younger generations also have their own wisdom, like their own consciousness coming upwards, and maybe that is less obvious. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense to me at least. And if you find my descriptions a little bit wishy-washy or weird, well, I did use active imagination, like Carl Jung often encourages to do. So keep that in mind, and maybe be a little bit forgiving in that way. And you can materialize these descriptions and stuff like that if you want that. Like, I just want to save the world, really. So that's kind of what I want with these functions. So if you get your own ideas from these functions, that is great as well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and give a like and subscribe, as they say. And I hope I see you next time.